Okay, that's better. Yeah, you guys didn't hear any of that I just said. Well, at least now it's working. Anyway, long story short, I had the flu, and the flu was running rampant through my house, and here we go. So, yeah, it's just one of those things, you know. So, at least my mic is now unmuted, and you can hear me okay. It looked like on my end, I got these, like, lights down here on my microphone, if you can see this. Let me see. Yeah, basically, these lights kind of tell me if I'm unmuted or not, and it looked like I was unmuted, but I guess I wasn't. But anyway, back to what we were talking about before. So, essentially, we were looking at CVEs and exploit database and how to search and all that jazz. So, now we're going to dive into some technical documentation. We've already gone over this a bit, and Linux man pages. So, you can go out, and if you have a Linux box on your machine, you can basically take and you can go out and do like man IP or man whatever you have, man ping or anything, and basically it'll tell you what that thing does. So I apologize. I'm really fighting this remnant of my upper respiratory from the flu, and so I'm just gonna roll with the punches here. So, all right, so Microsoft Windows, we have a technical documentation page for its products, and if we open that up, you'll see learn.microsoft.com, and they have a little bit of everything. Looks like they've got some AI stuff here. Obviously, AI is the big wave right now. I've heard David Bombal talk about how there's waves that come in tech. And I've seen that firsthand in cybersecurity over the last few months of my life, and talking about waves. You have waves that come and go, and you have to look for those waves, and you have to ride them as they come. It's really important, because otherwise you'll get just left behind. Basically, this current wave is AI all the way. I mean, you got to get on that surfboard, and you got to ride that wave, and you got to ride it the rest of the way. So AI is the big baby right now, and you gotta take and nurture it. So, product documentation. Every popular product is expected to have well-organized documentation. Documentation provides an official and reliable source of information about the product features and functions. Okay, so they got Snort, they got Apache, PHP. One that comes to mind for me, based on my previous role, is Tenable. So you can come out here and you can learn some stuff about Tenable documentation, and just how to use their products. But you could do this for anything. You could look up, Sneak documentation. What is Sneak? Sneak is basically it's a web application, like a code scanning tool. Basically, it scans all the different code that you have, and so anything that you have, you're going to have documentation for. So, super important stuff, really useful. But no matter what, you have to get used to either both A, writing documentation, and B, actually getting out here and reading it and getting good at reading documentation. It's super important. There's no way around it. So what does the Linux command cat stand for? So it stands for concatenate. And so let's submit that. What is the netstat parameter? Ooh, 1. Woohoo! We got 1. Yeah, that's really surprising there, because honestly, being sick, But what is the netstat parameter in MS Windows that displays the executable associated with each active connection and listening port? So let's do netstat man page. And then we can do this, and we can say netstat parameter in MS Windows displays the executable associated. Well, we don't need the Linux man page. Oh, we want netstat Windows active connection and listening port. And listening port. Cool. So we got netstat here on the Windows docs. And then displays all active TCP connections and UDP ports. So -A would be our ticket here. Submit that. No. Executable associated with each active connection. Okay, so executable executable with each active connection. So -B. And see, this is why it's really important to read. So let's take a look. So executable involved in creating each connection or listening port. So to me, this one makes the most sense. Let's see, what is -N, just to be safe? Displays all active TCP connections. That wouldn't be right. And then -O is displays active TCP connections and includes the process ID. So it's got to be B. And then, yeah, we'll submit that, and that's correct. Okay. Social media. There are billions of users registered on social media platforms such as Facebook, X, or Twitter, and LinkedIn. We expect you to be familiar with popular platforms. However, if you're aware of any platform you're not familiar with, we recommend that you check it out and learn about it. Ideally, one would want to explore a platform without creating an account. However, this severely limits your experience. Instead, one recommendation is to use a temporary email address to discover these platforms without linking them to your real email address. Once done, you can terminate the accounts and associated email addresses. One reason for not using your primary is that you don't want your contacts to start connecting with you there when you're only exploring the platform, trying to get used to it, wanting to know how it works, right? So when protecting a company, you should ensure that the people you protect are not oversharing on social media. This happens all the time. As I'm sure most are well aware, you do not want to be oversharing on your social media, because then it's just a way in. So because when did you go to school? What school did you go to as a child? Basically, well, that could be a question for resetting their password, and it's not good. You're hired to evaluate the security of a particular company. What is a popular social media website you would use to learn about the technical background of one of their employees? Security, popular social media. I mean, technical background, I would check LinkedIn. So that would be my go-to. Continuing with the previous scenario, you're trying to find the answer to the secret question. What school did you go to as a child? What school? Social media. First place I'd check would be Facebook. Yeah. And then, or Twitter. I mean, people put things on there too as well. Ensure you have noted the various search engines and resources mentioned in the room, as they'll be convenient for cybersecurity path, whatever cybersecurity path you follow. Right. Okay. So, handy stuff there. Okay. So we're going to close this out. We're going to go back to the main Learn page. So I'm going to go to our learning roadmap. We'll go to Cybersecurity 101. And let's do some Active Directory. Okay, so Active Directory. Welcome to the live chat. I see I got two folks who've joined, and so if you just joined, you can use the live chat there in the bottom underneath my face, and I would be happy to chat with you live if you have any questions as we go along. So, okay, let's do this. First, we got to join the room. All right, so Microsoft Active Directory, or AD, is the backbone of the corporate world. Yes, it is. It simplifies the management of devices and users within a corporate environment. In this room, we'll take a deep dive into the essential components of AD. So what is AD? What an Active Directory domain is, what components go into AD, and then forests and domain trusts, and much more. Super, super useful room here. Okay. Picture yourself administering a small business network with only 5 computers and 5 employees. In such a tiny network, you will probably be able to configure each computer separately without a problem. You'll manually log into each computer, create users for whoever will use them, and make specific configurations for each employee's accounts. Right, I mean, if a computer stops working, you will probably go to their place and fix the computer on site. This sounds very relaxed. Let's suppose your business suddenly grows and now has 157 computers and 320 different users located across 4 different offices. Would you still be able to manage each computer as a separate entity, manually configure policies for each of the users across the network, and provide on-site support for everyone? Hell no, absolutely not. You're not going to be able to do that. You need to have AD. To overcome these limitations, we can use a Windows domain. So simply put, A Windows domain is a group of users and computers under the administration of a given business. The main idea behind a domain is to centralize administration of common components of Windows computer network in a single repository called AD. The server that runs the AD service is known as the domain controller. So we got our domain here, we got our domain controller right here in the center, and then basically everything branches out from there. So we have workstations, we have desktops, databases, file servers, etc. You can have a plethora of different things here. The main advantage of having a configured Windows domain are centralized identity management. All users across the network can be configured from AD with minimum effort. And managing security policies. You can configure security policies directly from AD and apply them to users and computers. Right, exactly. Super useful stuff. You need to be an AD master to be a real hacker. You can't be a hacker without understanding AD. A real world example, and this sounds a bit confusing. Chances are you have interacted with a Windows domain at some point in your school, university, or work. In school and university networks, you'll often be provided with a username and password that you can use on any of the computers available on campus. That's a roaming profile. Your credentials are valid for all machines because whenever you input them on a machine, it will forward the authentication process back to AD, where your credentials will be checked. Thanks to AD, your credentials don't need to exist in each machine and are available throughout the network. AD is also the component that allows your school or university to restrict you from accessing the control panel on your university machines. So very likely if you've went to a college in the last couple of years, if you're, probably the last 15, 20 years, you're probably familiar with a roaming profile. If you log into multiple computers, this is what happens. And it all comes back to Active Directory. So policies will usually be deployed throughout the network so that you don't have administrative privileges over those computers. During this task, we'll assume the role of the new IT admin at THM Inc. As our first task, we have been asked to review the current domain thm.local and do some additional configurations. You will have administrative credentials over a pre-configured DC or domain controller to do the tasks. Cool. Should you prefer to connect to it via RDP, you can use these credentials. No, we're not going to do that. Okay. Just going to give it a minute here to load up. And then we'll continue on. Windows domain credentials are stored in a centralized repository. Server in charge of running the AD services is called Active Directory. Yep, and then the server in charge of running is the domain controller. Okay. Just while we wait here. Active Directory. The core of any Windows domain is the Active Directory Domain Service, ADDS. This service acts as a catalog that holds the information of all the objects that exist on your network. Among the many objects supported by AD, we have users, groups, machines, printers, shares, and many others. So users are one of the most common object types in Active Directory. Users are one of the objects known as security principals. Keep that in mind, security principals. Okay, so meaning that they can be authenticated by the domain and can be assigned privileges over resources like files or printers. You could say that a security principal is an object that can act upon resources in the network. Users can be used to represent two types of entities. People. Users will generally represent persons in your organization that need to access the network, like employees. And services. You can also define users to be used by services like IIS or Microsoft SQL. Every single service requires a user to run, but service users are different from regular users as they will only have the privileges needed to run the specific service. Okay. Machines are another type of object within Active Directory. For every computer that joins the AD domain, a machine object will be created. Machines are also considered security principals and are assigned an account just as any regular user. This account has somewhat limited rights within the domain itself. The machine accounts themselves are local administrators on the assigned computer. They are generally not supposed to be accessed by anyone except the computer itself, but as with any other account, if you have the password, you can use it to log in. Machine account passwords are automatically rotated out and generally comprised of 120 random characters. Identifying machine accounts is relatively easy. They follow a specific naming scheme. The machine account is the computer's name followed by a $sign. So DC01 $sign. Okay, security groups. If you're familiar with Windows, you probably know that you can define user groups to assign access rights to files or other resources to entire groups instead of single users. This allows for better manageability, as you can add users to an existing group and they will automatically inherit all of the group's privileges. Security groups are also considered security principals and therefore can have privileges over resources on the network. Groups can have both users and machines as members. If needed, groups can include other groups as well. Several groups are created by default in a domain that can be used to grant specific privileges to users. As an example, here are some of the most important groups in a domain. Got domain admins. This has the administrative privileges over the entire domain. Server operators. Users in this group can administer users in this group can administer domain controllers. They cannot change any administrative group memberships. Users in this group, for backup operators, are allowed to access any file ignoring their permissions. They are used to perform backups of data on computers. Account operators. Users in this group can create or modify other accounts in the domain. Domain users include all existing users in the domain. Domain computers includes all existing computers in the domain. So this is users in the user accounts in the domain users, and then domain computers is all the computers in the domain, and then domain controllers are all existing DCs. And then there is a full list out here on the Microsoft Docs. So we have security groups and how we can break that down. So that's good info to have. All right, AD users and computers. So to configure users, groups, or machines in Active Directory, we need to log into the domain controller and run Active Directory users and computers from the start menu, which is actually right here. So this will open a window where you can see the hierarchy of users, computers, and groups that exist in the domain. Yep. These objects are organized in organizational units, or OUs, which are container objects that allow you to classify users and machines. OUs are mainly used to define sets of users with similar policing requirements. The people in the sales department of your organization are likely to have a different set of policies applied than the people in IT, for example. Keep in mind that a user can only be part of a single OU at a time. Okay. So we have THM, and then we have our different groups here. So we have IT, management, marketing, research and development, sales. Okay. So we have our main OU, which is THM right here. So we right-click and create a new OU called Students. New organizational unit, and then call it Students. Click OK. Yep. If you open any OUs, you can see the users they contain and perform simple tasks like creating, deleting, or modifying them as needed. You can also reset passwords if needed. Pretty helpful for the help desk. All right. You probably noticed already that there are other default containers apart from the THMOU. These containers are created by Windows automatically and contain the following: built-in computers, domain controllers, users managed service accounts. Yeah, you can see them here. Managed service accounts, foreign security principles, domain controllers, etc. Right? So OUs are handy for applying. Okay, so this is important. Security groups versus OUs. You're probably wondering why we have both groups and OUs. While both are used to classify users and computers, their purposes are different, entirely different. So OUs are handy for applying policies to users and computers, which include specific configurations that pertain to sets of users depending on their particular role in the enterprise. Remember, a user can only be a member of a single OU at a time, as it wouldn't make sense to try to apply two different sets of policies to a single user. But security groups, on the other hand, are used to grant permissions over resources. For example, you will use groups if you want to allow some users to access a shared folder or a network printer. A user can be part of many groups, which is needed to grant access to multiple resources. So definitely important stuff to keep in mind, that OUs are for applying the policies to users and computers. So you can have basically the IT department made up of Claire, Mary, and Philip here. Management for Daniel, marketing for Mark, research and development has Bob in it. But you can have Bob and Mark and Daniel all part of a security group, and you could say that they have permission to, a shared folder or a shared printer, right? But you can't take Daniel here, who's in the OU, and move him over to, management. He could be moved, but basically, you don't want them to. He can't exist in both places at once. So he might exist in management, but he can't exist in management and marketing at the same time, because that's actually an OU. So that's important to keep in mind. Which group normally administrates all computers and resources in a domain? Domain admin. That would be domain admins, but which group normally administrates? So we would say domain administrators. That's what I would think, but maybe this has something else in mind. Yeah, domain admins. Maybe I just didn't type that out correctly. Domain admins. Yeah, okay. What would be the name of the machine account associated with the machine named Tom-PC? So the machine account would be... Let's come back up here. So we got to remember that $sign at the end. Tom-PC $sign. Suppose our company creates a new department for quality assurance. What type of containers should be used to group all quality assurance users so that policies can be applied consistently to them? So we would want to have organizational units. That's what we would want. Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. I'm going to just take a little break here because my throat is not happy, and neither is my nose. I'm still getting over everything from the flu, so just going to take a little break here. I know this was kind of a slow start to getting back into things, but tomorrow I'll pick back up with this stuff around managing users in AD, and then we'll continue on. So that'll be it for today, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.